What would you do if one day your own son asked you to leave the house you spent your entire life building? The same house where you raised him, fed him, protected him after his father died. That's exactly what happened to me. My daughter-in-law looked me in the eye and said I needed to respect their space. My own son sat quietly beside her and didn't defend me. So I packed my bags and left my home without a single argument. But there was just one small detail they didn't know. The house they were so eager to keep was never theirs to begin with. When my daughter-in-law first called me mom, I almost cried. Not because I felt loved, but because somewhere deep inside, I already felt myself disappearing. My name is Margaret Wilson. I'm 62 years old, and for most of my life, my entire world revolved around one person, my son, Daniel. Daniel was born on a cold, rainy evening in Chicago. I still remember the sound of rain tapping softly against the hospital window when the nurse placed him gently into my arms. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and in that moment, I felt a love so powerful it frightened me. Because I knew something instantly. My life would never truly belong to me again. It would belong to him. When Daniel was 8 years old, tragedy struck our small family. His father died suddenly from a heart attack. One moment we were a normal family. The next moment, it was just the two of us trying to survive. There were bills piling up on the kitchen table. There were debts I didn't know how to pay. And there was a little boy who still needed school shoes, lunch money, and bedtime stories every night. So I worked. I worked 12 hours a day in a small tailoring shop on West Madison Street. My fingers were always sore from sewing fabric hour after hour. My back ached every night when I finally lay down. But every evening, when I opened the door of our tiny apartment, Daniel would run toward me with the biggest smile on his face. "Mom, you're home!" And somehow, all the exhaustion vanished. For 25 years, it was just the two of us against the world. We shared everything. Dinner conversations at the small kitchen table, late-night talks about life and dreams, quiet cups of tea before bedtime. Even when he went away to college, he still called me every single day during his lunch break. Sometimes those calls lasted an hour, sometimes longer, and almost every time he would say the same thing before hanging up. "Mom, you're still the first person I want to talk to." And I believed him. I believed that would never change. But life has a way of changing things quietly when you least expect it. One evening, Daniel came home wearing a strange smile, the kind of smile that told me something important had happened. He sat down beside me on the couch and said softly, "Mom, I met someone." Her name was Emily Parker. She was beautiful, confident, and charming. She had a bright laugh that filled the entire room and perfect manners that made everyone like her instantly. The first time she came to dinner, she hugged me warmly and said, "I'm so happy to meet you, Mrs. Wilson." Later that night, Daniel told me quietly, "Mom, she's special." And I saw the truth in his eyes. That look, the look that meant he was already in love. So I told myself what every mother tells herself in that moment. My son is growing up, and growing up means letting go. What I didn't realize was how much I would have to let go. Their wedding was beautiful, a small ceremony near the lake with flowers everywhere, soft music playing, and friends laughing under the warm sunlight. When Emily hugged me during the reception and whispered, "I'm lucky to have you as my mom now," my eyes filled with tears. But only 1 week after the wedding, everything began to change. The mornings were the first thing to disappear. Daniel and I used to drink tea together every single day before work, but now they woke up late. Sometimes they ate breakfast inside their bedroom. Sometimes they left the house before I even woke up. and many mornings I found myself sitting alone at the kitchen table with 2 cups of tea. One of them always stayed untouched. I kept telling myself this was normal. Newly married couples need space. But space can feel very large when you're standing alone in it. Then the small comments started. The food was too oily. The spices were too strong. The kitchen needed better organization. One afternoon, I came home from work and stopped in the doorway, confused. The entire kitchen had been rearranged. Every plate, every cup, every drawer. Emily smiled brightly and said, "It's more convenient this way." Daniel nodded casually. "You'll get used to it, Mom." Get used to it? I had run that kitchen for 25 years, and now I was opening every drawer like a guest in my own house just to find a spoon. Soon, their bedroom door stayed closed most of the time. Sometimes I heard laughter from inside. One evening, I knocked gently and asked, "Do you want some tea?" Emily answered from behind the door, "We're good, Mom." The door never opened. Weeks passed like that. Then one rainy evening, something happened that broke my heart. I was walking past their room when I heard Emily speaking softly. "She doesn't understand boundaries." Daniel sighed. "I know, I'll handle it." Handle it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours and realized something painful. I wasn't losing my son all at once. I was losing him slowly, quietly. A few days later, Daniel sat across from me in the living room. His hands were tightly folded, and he avoided looking directly into my eyes. "Mom, maybe it would be better if you had your own place." The words felt like stones dropping into my chest. "For comfort," he added quickly, "you deserve peace." Peace. I looked around the living room, the walls I had painted myself, the family photographs I had framed, the home I had built with 25 years of sacrifice. "Are we in your way?" I asked quietly. "No," he said, but the pause before his answer told me everything. The next morning, I took out a cardboard box, not because anyone forced me, but because I understood. I folded my clothes slowly, packed old photographs carefully, wrapped the memories of a lifetime inside small boxes. When Daniel saw my suitcase near the door, his eyes widened. "Mom, you don't have to rush." I smiled gently. There's never a perfect time for change. Before leaving, I placed my hand softly on his cheek. "Take care of your home." And I walked out the door without crying. Some pain is simply too deep for tears. I stayed at my sister's house. The nights there felt long and quiet. I waited for Daniel to call. When he finally did, the conversation lasted only 5 minutes. 5 minutes. We used to talk for hours. That night, something inside me finally woke up. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Because there was something Daniel and Emily didn't know. This house was legally mine. 10 years ago, I bought it using my life savings. Every dollar I had earned from years of hard work. Daniel had helped with the paperwork back then, but the ownership had always remained in my name. The lawyer carefully reviewed the documents and then looked up at me. "Mrs. Wilson, this house belongs completely to you." For the first time in months, I smiled. 2 weeks later, Daniel received a legal notice. They had 30 days to leave the property. My phone rang immediately. "Mom, what is this?" His voice sounded shocked and confused. I answered calmly. "You asked me to find my own space." There was silence on the line. Then I heard Emily's voice whispering in the background. "She's serious?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I'm serious." For the first time in months, I felt something powerful inside my chest. Not anger, not revenge, just dignity. 30 days later, I unlocked the front door of my house again. The rooms were empty, quiet, peaceful. I placed my suitcase beside the door and slowly walked inside. The same walls, the same memories, but something inside me had changed forever. I was no longer the invisible mother. I was a woman who had finally remembered her worth. 6 months later, one quiet evening, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Daniel was standing there, alone. His eyes were red as if he hadn't slept for days. "Mom," he said softly, "I made a mistake." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in," because even when children forget, a mother's heart rarely does. But this time, something was different. This time, my son finally understood. My love was strong, but it was never weak.